In the diesel lubrication field, pumps and coolers are represented by two distinct and equally important groups: the engineers who design them and mechanics who modify and repair the engineered nonsense. This is their story. Caution, viewer discretion is advised. Hey, so I wanted to talk to you about why N14s have low oil pressure and what I did to cure mine. So first thing I did when I bought the truck is Lauren had it, and he'd had low oil pressure problems from the time he got it. He did not cause any of this. This was the previous owner. So I searched around. I didn't know anything about Cummins, but I did find that these will break off sometimes. This is a piston cooling nozzle. They're $10, genuine Cummins. They're a composite plastic. If they're going to break off, they're going to break off here where the roll pin goes. I do have a video, go back and watch my Cummins videos where I put these in the vise and I hit them and try to break them. These are pretty dang tough. But if you had a lot of miles and time on these, I'd take them out and replace them just to be safe, because if one broke off, you could burn down a cylinder real quick. So none of those were the problem. So we bring it home and we drop the pan, and bam, look at that, down to the copper. So just because it's to the copper, does that mean that's our problem? No. So we plastic gauged one of these old rod bearings, and it had 3.5 thousandths clearance. Just because it's to the copper doesn't mean it's wore out and that's your problem. We put new bearings in and we got it down to 3 thousandths. So let's move on to the oil cooler. This is Cummins's oil cooler. It's not pretty anymore. It was sludged up and nasty. Why was it sludged up? For the same reason these are wore out. The previous owner before Lauren owned it didn't change the oil regular. Recommended oil change interval on these is 10,000 miles. Why is it 10,000 miles? Okay, let's go to the oil cooler thermostat. So this is the cooler thermostat. It says 255 on it. They don't open, 225. They do not open at 225. These open at 255. Now, had a lot of people say, Jeff, how can you get that to open in that pot that you had? Water boils at 212. It's an oil cooler thermostat. You use oil. That's what was in the pot, oil. So this is the old one, I've taken it apart. So what it does is, you see this wear mark here? This is where it goes up in the housing. And there's a chamfer here. And when this covers the chamfer, this opens like this, and it has to get open quite a ways. It has to travel that far to get up against the housing. And once it does that, the oil can no longer come through here and bypass the cooler. It has to come out around the skirt, then goes up through a port, through the cooler, and back into the engine. So at 255 degrees, that's too hot for conventional oil. At 240, you start to oxidize it, it breaks down, it turns to sludge, it plugs your cooler, wears the crap out of your bearings, wears your pump, wears everything out. So why did Cummins do this? Okay, this is my 2 cents. I might get a lot of flack for this. It was for fuel savings. If your pump pumps low pressure, it takes less horsepower to drive it. Now heat the oil up to 200 and whatever degrees, and the viscosity goes down, it takes even less power to pump it. So now you're saving fuel. But you have to change the oil every 10,000 miles. So N14 is a good engine. Don't get me wrong. I do not dislike this engine. They are good engines, probably one of the best engines Cummins built. Guys go 1,000,000 miles, take them apart, and the bearings do not look like this. Well, they change the oil every 10,000. So if you go 1,000,000 miles, change your oil every 10,000 miles, that's 100 oil changes. Let's say each oil change costs you $200. I don't know if you do it yourself or if you hire it done. Let's just say $200. That's $20,000 in oil changes over that 1,000,000 miles. So let's say you could cut that in half. That's $10,000 in your pocket. So how are you going to do that? You're going to get rid of this. You're going to replace that cooler. You're going to get rid of this. So right here where this wear mark is, that's the size of the soft plug you need. I think the one we got is a GM soft plug. I believe it's a metric size. I pounded that in the hole and plugged it off. All right, I put the soft plug in there. It fits pretty darn tight. So somebody said, well, it better fit good so it doesn't blow it out, but pressure comes in this way and goes through the cooler and comes out. So there might, whatever pressure is on the other side from after passing through the cooler should be lower than whatever's pushing against here. So I don't think it'll ever come out. Now all the oil that comes in has to go right up through the cooler. So it's not going to blow up your oil cooler. There's a pressure control in the pump. This is the high pressure bypass. This thing will not open, according to the book, till 250 psi. I have no idea why they raised it so high. But the main pressure spool in the body will control your oil pressure. It will keep it down. Now, Cummins says in the book, when you start these cold, they want oil pressure, high oil pressure to the STCs as quick as they can get it. So you have a viscosity sensor, and I went through how that works in one of my videos. So no, you're not going to blow up your cooler. It's not going to cause you any problems. So now we've covered the bearings, the oil cooler thermostat, the oil cooler. Next place we want to go is to the pump. So this is a genuine Cummins pump, and this is out of a Big Cam 4. And that's what was in it. So the gears are beautiful. There's very little wear on them. They're just gorgeous. And this is the way oil pump gears have always looked on my cat stuff and everything I've ever seen made in the USA. They are very good quality. No wear on the sides of them. It's just a really good product. This is the main shaft. You've got some wear where it ran on the bearing here, but that's because they didn't change the oil. I want to rebuild this pump. I want to use this. So here's what happens. This pump had too much clearance. I'm going to blame most of the oil pressure problem on this. So I think the early Cummins, I'm not sure, used a helical cut gear. See how the teeth are cut on an angle? A helical gear pulls. So this goes on the end of the shaft. So what it's doing constantly is pulling this towards the front of the engine, and it's pulling this gear into the bottom of the housing here. And this is where all the wear is, down here. This is the rear end cover. This is absolutely virgin. This has not had a gear wear on it anywhere because it's constantly pulling it down into the pump. I wouldn't have to do anything to this. Just replace the bearing. This is good to go. So that's where your wear is going to occur. So this pump had too much clearance. So if you go back to the old Big Cam manuals, they tell you the end clearance. Let me tell you what end clearance is. So end clearance is the distance from this gear to the end plate. And the way you're going to check that is you're going to have the end cover on and the gasket, and you're going to put a dial indicator on here, turn the pump upside down, and you're going to pull this shaft in and out, and you're going to see how much it moves. So the old Cummins manuals tell you that you need 2 to 4 thousandths, 4 thousandths maximum. And that's always been my experience, is once you get to 5 and beyond, that pump is not going to pump. All my cat stuff is tight tolerance. But if you look in the newer N14 manual, it tells you 4 to 8 thousandths clearance. That's too much. So you watched me, I bought a genuine Cummins pump from Cummins. And it came and it was horrible. It had 7 thousandths in clearance. And when you rotated it, the gears, it had a spot where it bound up. When I looked inside the ports, the gears did not have enough material for them to finish machining this root in the tooth. And so you had these giant marks in here that were deep. So when it pumps oil, it's going to squirt that up. And when you already have too much end clearance, it squirts it up, it goes around, comes back through again, and you're pumping it over and over. And when you do that, you just create more heat. So all around, it's just a general waste of energy, if you ask me. So then we got to move on to the oil pickup tube. So the oil pickup tube goes, it's damaged here. And the way this works is it goes through the pan, and on where it comes through, there's a chamfer. And you put an O-ring around here, and then the pipe goes over it, and there's a flange on the end of the pipe, and it pushes on that O-ring. And on that flange, it's tapered the other way. And then there's a plate that goes over it and pinches it in there. So the idea is it's going to pinch that O-ring into the pan, and then on the inside of that suction pipe, and then pinch it down around this and seal it. Well, with this kind of damage, you're not going to seal. So if you're sucking air here, you're cavitating the pump, you're wearing it out, and you're not pumping oil. So was this leaking? Don't know, but I got another one. So if you take yours apart and it has these clamps on your suction tube with the plastic, get rid of these and go to the older style without it. I had a viewer send me a picture of his. These came apart and they got stuck in these suction slots and they burned his engine down. So when I got my new pump, I had to mill off 4 thousandths off this body to get the clearance down. I put air pressure with a pressure regulator on there to see at what pressure the regulator spool would open, and it would start to move at about a little over 40 pounds. Okay, I got me a pressure regulator on here, and I got it set for, looks like about 40 pounds. So let's see what it does. See, it opens it right to the edge of that chamfer on there. It would start spilling at 40. So when I put it together, I put one of these 3/8 hard flat cat washers in there, and they're about 85 thousandths thick. And so I've got good pressure. I got 20 pounds hot, or maybe a little less at idle, and about 50, 55 with it wound up, depending on how many RPMs you're running. But I've got really good pressure, and I did not change the cam bearings. I don't really think it was the bearings causing my problem. I think it was 80% of the whole problem was this pump. So if you got an N14 and you want to fix your oil pressure, you've got two choices. Fix your old pump if it's fixable. If your bores in here where the gears run are not scratched, and you put the gears in and check this clearance in there, that's an important clearance. If you can get that down, I don't remember what the book says. They allow you like a couple thousandths clearance in the bearings, or 1 thousandths, I can't remember. I think my new Chinese pump, I couldn't get a 4 thousandths feeler gauge in here. That was the smallest I had. And what I plan on doing with this one, you could do the same thing, is you press this stub shaft out. That's not hard to do. Here's the other end of it. This is your pressure control spool. Take that out. Or you could just take it to the machine shop, tell them what you want to do. Take this out and see if somebody can go down in here and clean this up. It does have some wear grooves in it. I don't know how bad they are. I don't have precision micrometer fingers. I can't really feel anything, but I would like that surface to be fairly flat. If somebody could go in there and machine that flat again, that would be awesome. If not, new bearings, machine this down, get your clearance down to 2/1000ths, 2 to 3. That's what I would do. You machine this off and get you down to that 2/1000ths mark, and you're good to go. I'm betting money this thing would pump all the oil and pressure you need. Now, do you want more than the 35 to 40 that Cummins regulates it at? That's all controlled right here. I would replace the spring that's in here because they do tend to take a set. The oil filter bypass spring in the housing, I bought a new one of those. Cummins does not give you a free length measurement. All their measurements are based on a preload in a tester. But you could take the old spring, set it to the new one, and yes, it was a genuine Cummins spring. And you could see that the old one was, you know, I can't remember. I think it was like 20 or 30 thousandths higher, the new one, than the old one. So I replaced that. I would replace this spring. And if you want, you could check it. All you have to do is put the end plate and everything on together. And this hole right here is where you're going to put your air. And on the other end, you're going to plug it. Actually, you don't even need to put the housing together. You just need to plug this hole right here. And then you can blow air in here. And that will operate this. And you can watch it to see at what pressure you can start to see that chamfer. You know you're going to start dumping oil. So you could put a 3/8 cat hard flat washer in there if you want to get it up 10 pounds or better. You could do that. But mostly what I would do is get rid of the oil cooler thermostat, plug the hole, fix your pump, replace your cooler, and you're just not going to have any problems. Once you get rid of this, do oil sampling. If you changed your oil at 10,000, do the sampling and see how far you can go. We are going to do some sampling to find out how long it will go before we got to change it. So you want your N14 to have good oil pressure. This is what I've discovered. Now, I know a lot of guys may disagree with me on this. If you think I'm crazy about the pump clearances, just go Google that. No pump engineer is going to tell you that 8 thousandths is a good clearance. No CAT equipment I own allows that much clearance. It's complete nonsense. Cummins does not make a magic pump that pumps the oil you need with 7 thousandths clearance brand new from the factory. It's not going to happen, not going to work. So leave your comments below. Tell me why you disagree with it. Or if you have some questions, and I'll try to cover your questions if I didn't do that in here. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the series of videos. And if you got an N14, do what I'm telling you to. You won't regret it.